Bruce Miller,
Here.
John Clark,
Here.
Chris Colbert,
Here.
William Gilbert,
Here.
Tricia Griffin,
Here.
Kirk Martin, Scott Tracy.
Here. Do we have any changes to the agenda?
No changes.
Okay. This is then the period for public comment. We have up to 15 minutes where any member of the public may address the Airport Commission on a subject within its jurisdiction. And this is the time for items that are not on the agenda. Do we have any comment slips?
I don't have any comments.
Okay. Notices that the lease review subcommittee meeting scheduled for Thursday, February 11th was canceled. That on Thursday, February 11th at 5 p.m., the Airport Commission Secretary duly posted this agenda on the bulletin board at Airport Administration. The consent calendar. Do we have any items to remove from that calendar? None. And that calendar, then, do we have a motion to accept the consent calendar as presented?
So moved.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The consent calendar carries, which then brings us to the liaison reports. We have our Santa Barbara City Council liaison.
Well, Mr. Chair, I had mentioned that I didn't have anything to report, but I suppose I do. I really want to thank Rebecca Fribbley for her wonderful tour this evening of the rental car quick turnaround facility. It's the most incredible building that the traveling public will almost never see or encounter. The fact that it's so efficient, I mean, it's truly a Santa Barbara facility. And it's right down our sustainability alley, and it's just extraordinary. And I guess I'm hopeful that we will do something, maybe with our city TV or some way to celebrate that, so the public will have a chance to recognize. I mean, 800 and some solar panels on there, and the recycled water for the cleaning, and the energy efficiency and the beauty of it's just phenomenal. And I guess it's sort of a preview of what we're going to be able to experience with the new terminal when it comes online. We're getting just a little tip of the iceberg. Anyway, I'm here to report how excited and happy I am about that. So that's it.
All right, thank
Mr.
you,
Chair?
Council Member.
Maybe when we're on the topic of the QTA, we need to have a football player come and help me with this.
Wow.
This is our Lee Gold plaque that we got today. It came in the mail.
Wow.
And that's for attaining LEED Gold. And we will probably put it up in our office because more people will see it, and then note what it's for. So anyway, it's quite big.
And heavy.
Nice.
And
And
heavy,
heavy,
yes.
very
It's an
heavy.
impressive achievement.
Yes. And we will have a opening ceremony to show off the lead part, construction of the building and benefits of the building, and put out press releases and stuff. So
Great. And our City of Goleta Liaison Council Member Ed Easton.
Due to the imbalance between your clocks and my clocks, your Santa Barbara liaison appeared before me tonight, which embarrasses me no end. I regret to announce we have not discussed in the Goleta City Council anything approaching annexation of the airport or anything that has to do in any way, manner, shape, or form with the airport. We have been occupied with beginning to look at next year's budget, which is what chills the heart of every person who's involved in municipal government. And we have no idea what the state's going to do to us. So that's all I really have to report. But it's nice to see you all again and to be back with you.
Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Okay. And that brings us then to our administrative reports. Item 10, the annual FAA Airport Safety and Security Inspection.
As a way of introduction, Tracy Lincoln, our operations manager, is actually going to talk about this, but I want to give a little preface. Normally, there are very few operational kinds of things that we discuss at Airport Commission, but I thought you might be interested kind of in the things that our annual FAA certification inspection and inspector looks at and kind of how we did. And Tracy spends several days when they come for their inspection taking the inspector around the airport, and so I will let him share the glory.
Thank you very much. Each year, the FAA, the annual FAA inspection is conducted by Airport Certification and Safety Specialists. They're out of the LA Regional Office for our airport. They look at all of our maintenance and documentation. What I'm referring to specifically is they'll look at all our runway and airfield inspection reports. They'll look to see that things are being noted and that actions were taken and they were repaired. They'll compare work orders to the inspection sheets just to make sure that there's a paper trail. The FAA has needed that in a few cases, as you may know. In addition, we want to, they review markings, signage, lighting systems for function, maintenance record. They make sure we've had our certification manuals updated. They always seem to find more updates even though you just finished updating it, but it is one of the many things they review. They look at our issues for our records for issuing notices to airmen, which is for the non-pilots in the room. It goes over radio frequencies and into the FAA kind of flight planning data, so anybody flying to this airport can check these notices to airmen and they will know whether a runway is closed or taxiway lights are out. That's what those are for. They review all of that, and then they also review other incident documentation procedures. There's a total of 89 things that they look at. We only count 84 of them for this airport because the other 5 have to do with snow removal. So rather than just give us credit for always getting those correct, yeah.
100%.
They look to ensure that we're maintaining our safety areas. They do a general drive around the airfield. They inspect fuel farms. They inspect the Aircraft Rescue and Fire Department training records, as well as they check to make sure they're testing their foam refract test so that when a fire does occur on an aircraft, the foam will work when we get there. They speak with the control tower to make sure that we are maintaining a good relationship and we are coordinating airfield activities with them, because when we go out on the airfield to do maintenance, it greatly impacts the operations of the control tower, so we need to work with them. And I can go on. Are there any other questions? In general, they look at all signage and lighting systems on the airfield. They look at the pavement condition. They look at the pavement maintenance records as well as lighting and signage maintenance records. And the other documentation trails for notices to airmen and work orders for repair that was done. They review the actually the maintenance records on the ARF rigs also to make sure the aircraft rescue and firefighting vehicles are being properly maintained. So there's a whole slew of things. We did pretty well. I think we received 2 actual minor violations. One particular thing was some painting, some markings that are brand new markings that were done incorrectly. These new markings were recommended kind of in the middle of a project, and we did them in the field, and there was a section of markings that aren't correct, so we'll need to remove some of those and redo them. It's not a big deal, but it's a little inconvenient. The other, I apologize, I don't remember. Do you remember the one other write-up that we received? There was 2. One was the markings. The other one was there was a couple of training issues. People had just missed their annual training. They review all of our training records, and different groups of employees need to receive different types of training at specific interviews. I believe the operations manager hadn't received his annual training for driving on the airfield.
And we corrected
That's
that.
being corrected promptly.
Yes.
Tracy, I have a quick question. Does their scope of investigation also include areas of security?
Not the FAA has an area they refer to as public protection, where they'll look at the perimeter fence. So somebody doesn't stumble on the airfield by
Sure.
accident. But when it comes to our access control system and our security requirements, that whole ball of wax is over in the TSA's court, Transportation Security Administration.
Okay.
And they do inspections once a month and an annual once a year.
Thank you. Yeah. Sounds like it was very thorough. Any other questions? Thank you. All right.
One thing about the inspections that I should mention, because I love to talk, I get to speak so rarely in these
The
meetings.
integrated pest management report's coming up.
Anyway, what I wanted to say is each inspector rotates through different airports every couple of years, and these inspectors typically go to, 15, 20 airports. So riding around with them and listening to them talk about how other airports are doing things and what they see, those guys and gals are a wealth of knowledge. So it's kind of a good thing to ride around with them each year for a few days.
Sure. Yeah. Okay, that brings us to the fiscal year 2010 mid-year financial review.
Thank you. I could get confused because we're also doing the 2011 budget, which is due tomorrow. So if my comments don't go with the presentation, forgive me. It's getting kind of hectic. As you know, each year we do a mid-year review, and each department of the city goes through their budget. We check it to see if there's any irregularities, any adjustments that need to be made, and then we submit documentation to the finance department, and then they make a presentation to city council on the status of the budget. And if you do need to make any adjustments, this is the time of year that they do that. So when we looked at ours, we took the opportunity to kind of look at all of our revenue lines of business and thought once again about what's impacting us. And the economy continues to play a role. But as you'll recall, with our commercial industrial tenants, we took some preventative action by waiving some annual adjustments, which didn't impact us too much financially, but I think goes to tenant retention. Commercial airlines continue to make changes on a daily basis. We just learned today that American Eagle is going to have 2 flights reduced in June, about the same time that Frontier is supposed to start and give us 2 flights. So it's a ball of wax that keeps on moving. And of course, when we do have reduction in passengers, that affects concessions, including the rent-a-car concession, as well as the parking and gift and food concessions. Local general aviation operations are stable, according to the 2 FBOs. That's what they told me. Matt's here. He might, Matt Long with Signatures in the audience, so he might have other comments on that. Corporate aviation is still not back where it was before 2008. But I am pleased to say that we're on target with the budget. In fact, we're just a touch over about 5.1% ahead of our budget target. In commercial industrial revenue is still, we're holding our own. We have had quite a bit of leasing activity working with the same types of niche tenants that we get, storage yards, or new startup businesses, which is really kind of an exciting thing for us to do as well. Our vacancy rate is larger now. It's out of 3.9% for buildings. That's our vacancy rate, and 1.6% for land. So we're really in good shape, I think. Non-commercial aviation, we're up. And that, remember, non-commercial aviation, or the general aviation, the FBOs, Ampersand, Stratman. We are up on that by about 5%. Corporate fuel sales, as I said, are still down, but GA activity operations are just a little bit below last year. We did benefit from having the hydromulching operation last fall. 2 falls in a row we had hydromulching. When we started off with our revenues for 2010, we knew that commercial aviation was going to be down, so we picked 8.5% as a number to work with for decrease in our projected revenues. The airline terminal concessions are up, maybe because, well, for several reasons, I think. One, we put the gift shop back in the lobby. That made a huge difference. The restaurant is doing well right now where they're with the new manager. I think they're doing good. Passenger traffic is down. This is a percentage from July through December. So keep in mind when you see our other report, it's on an annual calendar basis. But for this report, I'm doing it for June or July through December, so it's down 6.7%. Parking, we reduced that amount last year, and they're right on target. I'm really pleased about that. Rent-a-car is still up 6.6%, so that's good. Commercial aviation, the building rental is down. The rental rate, we held it at the same dollar amount. We've done that for 2 years going. The difference, however, is that we were also charging the airlines for parking, and they've had staff reductions. And so the number of parking issued is less than what we had projected. We didn't realize that the staff would be cut back as much as it has. Landing fees are up above our target by 19, almost 20%. Interest, those numbers come from downtown, and we were told $310,000 for the year, but we're above that by 7.9% mid-year. So hopefully that will continue. TSA reimbursement, we're still getting $162,000, $163,000. That's delayed because you have to complete the month, get the paperwork processed. So that will always be lagging behind. Under other revenue this year, because of a new TSA requirement that every pilot and individual who wants to go inside the airfield has to have a badge. And that was a new revenue opportunity for us because we're charging $25 per badge. And so we're doing it. This chart gives you, it illustrates in the maroon color, that's this year, 2010 versus 2009 expenses. So our total revenues year to date, $6,538,112, which is good. Then our expenditures are $5,352,000, which is, this time last year it was $5,733,000. So even we thought we were conservative last year, but we're even tighter this year on our budget. We did, as you remember, any contract that is in effect at the end of a fiscal year that has not been completed will be carried forward to the next year. So these numbers do include the carry forward amounts. Overall, we're about 10.7 below the budget for a couple of reasons. Salaries, we still have vacancies in patrol, have always had vacancies in patrol since 2001, January. We also, the city administrative staff went on furlough, and so we have $58,000 in savings from that as well. Supplies and services, we're under budget. Part of that is just reporting because utilities, we're behind, we are behind a month in paying the bill or having it recorded in the general ledger. And some of the expenses that are in the maintenance programs are planned to be done in the spring. So they're not going to show up in the fall, but will show up in the spring and by year end. Of course, with ARF, there's no variance. They do 1/12, 1/12, 1/12. Special projects, AMCO, that's where we have the shuttle operation, so we can track that. Those expenses are only for July through October. The city was furloughed for 2 weeks in December, the last 2 weeks of December, and so processing payments was pretty much delayed until January. Equipment, that $17,000, that's on the report. That was for the security media access station. That was to allow all those badges we talked about, the $25 in order to have those made. Is that correct, Tracy?
It's a mobile badging station, so we can issue badges in different locations if we need to. And we did.
Still, thank you. Allocated costs, city-provided services, those are on target as well. But I would like to point out that the costs are 16% less this year than they were last year because of the changes that have taken place in the general fund, with some of the positions being eliminated and people being on furlough. So as their budgets go down, the cost to us also goes down. This chart gives you a comparison again of our expenditures versus the same for last year. So in summary, our revenues are on target. We're a little bit above. Our expenditures are below. We are becoming even more conservative on our spending. Position vacancies, when we come back with our budget for 2011, we'll discuss some changes in positions. And at this time, we don't need any adjustments in our budget. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Yes. One question I would have would be on the city allocated costs. Is there a concern that they will adjust their allocated cost formulas and raise that percentage to you? And if that's the case, how would you deal with that?
Well, I have not heard of that concept downtown because the city hires an outside consultant to do the cost allocation program, and it's based on salaries and time spent doing certain activities. So that's not to say that they couldn't come up with a new formula. But as far as I know, that cost allocation plan is continuing for at least the next year because I've already received those costs for 2011. So I don't think that would be there. And if they did, Commissioner, we just have to pay it.
Okay.
Adjust. I'd like to compliment staff on planning so well to weather the storm. And my question also is, have you heard anything about the furloughs and how long they're going to continue?
This furlough is for this year through June 30th, and Karen can answer probably more. She sits on a staff committee for that.
Yeah, I don't think any decision has been made. The city administration is meeting with the different bargaining units, but I wouldn't be surprised if we had a continuation of the furlough and other cost-cutting measures that will be necessary to balance the general fund.
No further questions?
Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you, and thank you for putting together an excellent budget. And I think that brings us to the director's report.
It does. Well, our passenger count for January was down 6.8%. I think weather and, besides the economy, weather in January and continuing in February has not been good across the country. So that does affect passenger count as well as just less people wanting to or being able to afford to travel. In terms of our programs, our air service program is, we've announced that Frontier Airlines will begin 2 daily nonstops between Santa Barbara Airport and Denver on Embraer 190 regional jets, which are 99 seats. We were told yesterday. I thought that was interesting. Beginning June 4th. On Valentine's Day, they started their advanced bookings, so we're hoping that they do well to supplement the service that United already provides. They are a kind of considered a, I don't know about a low-cost carrier, but a lower-cost carrier than some of the value carrier.
I read today that the introductory. Oh, I read today in a AAA newsletter that the introductory fare is $79
Oh, great.
to Denver.
So book your reservations now. And And they do have quite a robust network beyond Denver, so it's, you know, you can get to the east and the northeast. So it's worth checking out. And
I was looking up some travel plans for my own family, trying to get back east, and it ended up being more cost-effective to actually go through Denver, and this is before the Frontier News. So they may do well with this,
right.
this hub.
We've been asking United for years to boost the number of flights to Denver and be more consistent about it, because there is a really heavy demand, but they haven't done that. You know, they've had other priorities, I guess, in their system. So this will really, I think you're right that it will do well. Let's see. In terms of the airline terminal project, if you haven't been driven by the terminal in the last week or so, I'd encourage you to do that. The steel is going up pretty rapidly, I think, and you can see kind of what the shape of the roof is going to be, and it's pretty impressive to see that. Our city TV crew has been filming different stages of the construction and putting it on our website through YouTube, so you can go on there and watch the progress of the project. We also this week put a project newsletter on our website, so you might want to check that out. Let's see. Our self-serve fueling project, Hazel told me today that MAG Aviation has received their building permit. So we should, unless something happens to make it take longer, probably in the next 6 weeks, see the fuel facility completed. So that'd be pretty exciting. Let's see. Our airport T hangar list, we now have 2 names remaining on the list. We've finally filled the vacant T hangars, and we'll be holding the next lottery in the second quarter of this year. So hopefully the economy will improve enough that we'll get enough people that will want to be part of that. In terms of our concession program for the new terminal, a request for proposal was put out for food and beverage, and a retail concession request for proposal was also distributed. And the food and beverage proposal is due on March 24th, as well as the retail. And then tomorrow we will have a pre-proposal meeting for interested parties that are interested in submitting a proposal. And is it required? It's a mandatory attendance at that briefing, so we'll get a kind of a sense of how strong the response might be. Let's see, I said the terminal project's doing well, and that's really. Oh yes, we did. We put out our request for proposal for 3 pieces of public art, and we had a pre-proposal meeting that was quite well attended, and tomorrow the proposals are due. So it'll be interesting to see. We've had quite a bit of communication between artists and artist teams with Rebecca and with also the Santa Barbara County Arts Commission staff who is working with us on this. So I'm looking forward to see what we get in terms of proposals. And that's all I had for the director's report. If there's anything I didn't mention that's on the report you'd like me to speak to, I'd be happy to.
Any additional items? Okay. Well, with that, Ben?
I have a question on the concession. Would the city be interested in providing, excuse me, materials or shirts or hats or things that promote the airport in the city as part of one of the concessions, or would you? I've seen this done in other airports. Long Beach has a product line, Long Beach LBG, hats, T-shirts, things like that, and it's revenue for the city.
We hadn't considered that. I don't know that we couldn't negotiate something with whoever is selected for the gift shop.
Well, I'll pass on
to do
the
something like that.
flyer that I saw.
Yeah,
You guys
that's
can
great.
take it.
Okay.
Good.
More branding.
Yeah.
ISBA.
Yes.
That's right.
That's right.
No further questions? Well, with that, that takes us to the adjournment. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Visit that steel over there at the terminal. It's quite impressive.
Wonderful.
It's